Hey, what's up guys? Rare Bishop here with another video review, this time for a game called Skylar Plux Adventure on Clover Island, developed by Right Nice Games and Grip Digital, who is also the publisher. This is a game that that kind of flew under my radar. I was on the Xbox store last night, or a couple nights ago, depending on when you're listening to this, and was looking at the new releases, and this was one of the games on there, and it was on sale for $10. So I thought, that's a pretty good introductory price to kind of jump in, and it looked, from the screenshots, looked okay. So I decided to buy it, and after playing through it and completing it, I would have to say that for that $10, it was it was an enjoyable experience, especially going in not knowing what the game was. So for those who are also unaware of what this is a 3D platformer. So if you want to think of stuff like the recently Ukulele and the old stuff like Banjo-Kazooie, and even to an extent Ratchet and Clank. I would say it's halfway between a Ratchet and Clank game and about Ukulele, somewhere in the middle there. It's not as intricate with the puzzles and the level design as a Ukulele, and it doesn't have the weapons or the enemy variety of a Ratchet and Clank. But it's kind of a simplified version of those two games. The name of the game, Skylar Plux, is because the two characters that you have in the game are called Skylar and Plux, and that's where it becomes kind of a ukulele-type Banjo-Kazooie thing, where you have the main playable character, and then you have the sidekick. But the sidekick in this game doesn't really come into play when it comes to the gameplay portions. It's kind of, the sidekick is just kind of there with you to add some banter and lines of dialogue. But getting back to the main characters, you play as Skylar Lynx, who is a cat, and then you have your sidekick Plux, who is Plux Owlsley, because he is an owl. And the main thing is you're trying to stop this, the evil villain. It's one of those 3D platformers where you have to try to stop to save the world from this evil villain. And it like I said, it harkens back to the days of a Banjo-Kazooie and Ratchet and Clank, but when it comes to the actual gameplay part of it, it's a very toned down, stripped down version of those games. So you start out, you can double jump, you can hit the X button to punch, B button for a spin attack, the regular stuff you see in these style of games. And you have these collectibles that you use for currency to unlock and to save, these villagers that you're trying to help along the way. They're optional; you don't have to save them, but they help you get extra hearts, so extra health. And they, it's just some kind of hidden collectibles they have inside the environment for you. But the actual gameplay itself, you have the punch, you have the spin attack. As you make it through, there are only 3 or 4 areas for you to actually traverse through, and each one of those has a different ability. So you start out, the first one you get a jetpack. Then you get the ability to slow down time. So when you have certain enemies, and there's only about 3 or 4 different enemy variety types in this game. You have just a regular enemy you can defeat very easily. You have one that shoots rockets, and you have one that's basically a turret. And that's about it. They can all be defeated with one hit. You don't have to hit them multiple times. And so you get the ability to slow down time, which means you have the ability to get behind them so you don't get hit with those rockets, you don't get hit with that turret. And then the last one you get is a magnet, basically. It's not a gun, so you're not shooting anything in this game, but you can pick up, with that magnet ability, you can pick up the turret and use that turret against the other enemies surrounding you. So you can use that, basically. But there are no guns or anything like that. You kind of use your fisticuffs and you use the abilities that they give you. And the level design themselves, it's very kind of straightforward and linear to an extent, and that's where I kind of got disappointed. Is I kind of thought it would be more of a Ratchet and Clank kind of, not open world, but the areas themselves, each new area you got to, I thought would maybe be a little bit more open-ended, and that wasn't the case. You can kind of go from point A to point B relatively quickly, and I'll say that because I beat the entire game, start to finish, from beginning to credits, in 121 minutes according to the save file I had. So that's 2 hours and 1 minute I was able to defeat this game. And for $10, that's kind of on the low side of doing it. Granted, I could have gone back and got every single villager, every collectible in the game. I could have gone back and kind of replayed some missions if I wanted to, but it's one of those games where once you play it once, you don't really need to go back. There's not anything that you're going to miss or that you're going to be able to achieve going back a second time unless you want to go back and get those collectibles. So at $10 and for 2 hours, granted that time will fluctuate depending on how you play it and if you decide to go get all the collectibles or how you go about playing the game. But for me, I would say for 2 hours, $10 is probably in line with some people's opinion, but for me, that's a little bit on the low side. And I did run across a few technical issues. I think visually the game looks good. I think there are certain instances where it looks incredible with the lighting and the way they handle some of the animations. But there are times where you'll just be jumping along and the game will just stutter for 2 or 3 seconds. And when you're jumping in a platformer and the game stutters for 2 or 3 seconds, that can hinder your performance in the game. You can die a few times, and that did happen occasionally. I don't know if you'll see that in this video because it's kind of random when the stuttering will happen. But like I said, it's a halfway between a Ratchet and Clank and a ukulele or Banjo-Kazooie style game. It's not over the top with guns and weapons and stuff like a Ratchet and Clank, and it's not as puzzle-esque as a ukulele or Banjo-Kazooie. It's very kind of, you can make this game be as very linear as you want. There are a few puzzles in there that there's 3 or 4 different puzzle situations in there that just about anybody can solve. But I think with the amount of people that made the game, for it to be only $10, I wish it was a little bit longer. But I would say if you're into those style of games, those 3D action platformers, I would actually recommend it. But if you're the type of person who, especially for 2 hours, I mean, there are people who don't have as much time to play some of these games, so 2 hours is kind of a sweet spot for them. But if you're looking for something a little bit longer, something that's a little bit more challenging, it's not a challenging game at all, I would say maybe hold off on it. Maybe don't pick it up. But personally, as someone who did not know anything about this game before starting it up, I was kind of surprised by it. So with this video, check out what you think of the gameplay. Think if a 2 to 3 hour mark for the game's length is good enough for you, and try it out for yourself. I was pleasantly surprised with it. I ended up enjoying my time with it, even if I thought it was a little bit shallow or simplified and short. But with that, that's it for this video review. Thanks for watching, listening, and have a good one.